Well, I hope everybody's doing well tonight. We're getting ready to start our show here tonight, our aspect of what we do with our birth certificate. There's a lot of people out there who give you a lot of different information out there dealing with the birth certificate. And some say, oh, you don't need to have it authenticated. Others say you do. And some say you have to have it from the county level to the state level to the federal level. And we just work with two levels. You can do three, but I don't believe it's really required to do the three, even though some of the other teachers in this ideology believe that. Okay. And the reason why I say so is because the county is connected to the state through the quasi and RAM contract. And within that contract itself, it creates the state as the true liability. And so the county, even though they have a county birth certificate and a live birth certificate, it's all under the state certificate. Okay, so that's kind of why we just work with the state birth certificate to be utilized as far as with the authentication process, and not worrying about the county. So if some of you have got the county, that's good. Kudos to you. But again, in my personal time doing this stuff, it really doesn't make that much of a difference. Okay, so tonight, we're, like I mentioned before, we're going to work on how to fill out the forms. Okay, so hopefully all of you by now, we've been going at this for quite a few, weeks, a little bit over a month now. Hopefully all of you by now have at least taken the opportunity to get your birth certificates. I always suggest to get a couple. Some people, get three or four. I always say get at least two as a minimum. And the reason why, again, is because, again, while you're doing this process, to be able to utilize an extra one in case you have to utilize it for some form of verification as you're doing your trust paperwork to initiate that into your trust and this type of stuff, you have collateral within that aspect. And when you place that certificate into your trust, you're actually balancing out the scales from the public and moving it into the private. And so you're basically taking control of that birth certificate. That's how we see it within the trust. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share our screen like we always do, and we'll get this set up here and get that out. And we'll go here. Well, how to fill out your form. Okay, that's basically what we're going to talk about, state level and the aspect of the let me go ahead and get this thing here changed out. For some reason, there we go. All right, so this is the South Carolina Secretary of State authentication cover letter. Okay, and I've placed links on that multiple times on both the Signal as well as our previous chats that we had just through messaging and so forth. Okay, and so you can go online, type in South Carolina Secretary of State authentication, and it'll go and take you exactly to that page, and you just click on it, and you're going to find an area there that says authentication cover letter PDF, and you're just going to go ahead and click on that, and this is the form that you get. And so it's very simple. Okay, tonight's going to be a very cut and dry explanation because, again, there's not much to this. Okay, so as we look at this, and we're going to notice on the right-hand corner, South Carolina Secretary of State, Attention Authentication Office, with the address and so forth and the phone number. Okay, and we're going to step down to name. You're going to put your first name, middle name, last name in that area, okay? And you're just going to just put it in upper lowercase. You're not going to put any dashes or anything like that. You're just going to put it like normal. You're going to put your mailing address, okay? You're going to put either a P.O. box or your physical address. Now, we do not abbreviate anything in the mailing address. Again, I'll say that again. We do not abbreviate anything. So you're going to be putting, and we're going to get to that here shortly, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. But again, this is the information here, okay? You'll put your phone number. If you have an email address, you can put that. Uh, Normally, some people do, some people don't. It just depends on what you feel comfortable with, okay? But it's not necessarily a full requirement, okay? So document information, destination country for documents. You're going to put United Arab Emirates. Now, everything that we're going to talk about tonight, I have on a PDF form already, and I'm going to put that here at the end of this class in the chat. And so you'll be able to go to the chat, click on it, and download it. Okay. So you're going to have everything that we're showing tonight for your own personal use. It's not going to be, something that you're not going to have access to. We're not hiding anything. Okay. So again, we look at everything there. You're going to put number of documents. So if you have two birth certificates, you're going to put two. Now, if you only have one and you don't want to get another one, which I suggest you should, but again, it's up to you. I can only, give you the advice. You would put two there, okay? Or if you, let's say, for instance, you wanted five, you would put five. And then again, you'll come down here where it says return information, and you're going to mail that section, okay? So you're going to put an X, okay? And when you read that, it says a self-addressed return delivery envelope with prepaid postage is required. And so we're going to get into that. So the next area is the mailing instructions, okay? So this is how we're going to look at it, okay? Some people utilize certified mail, some people use registered mail. What's the difference, okay? Certified mail is part of the corporation status of the post office. In other words, the United States Postal Service. The registered mail is of the United States of America. Now, some people like to use that, some people like to use the certified mail. To me, it really doesn't make that big of a difference because, again, we're not asking for anything other than the authentication. It doesn't matter how we get it through registered mail or through certified mail. And that's how I look at it. Other people might look at it different, but that's how I look at it. Okay. You're going to get the same paperwork no matter if it's certified mail or registered mail. And registered mail is a whole lot more expensive, just so y'all know. Okay. So if you're not familiar with this, this is what a certified mail green slip looks like. Okay. And so you're going to get a few of these. I suggest all of you get at least 10 of this particular certified mail receipt. Why 10? Because you might be utilizing a lot more as we progress, okay? There's going to have to be notifying different people as you change your status within the tax areas, all these different places that we're going to be sending paperwork to. So since we're sending it to South Carolina Secretary of State, where it says sent to, you're going to put this information that's located on the bottom. Attention, Authentication Office. You're going to have the address, the suite, Columbia, South Carolina, with the zip, okay? And you're going to put that right on there. Now, when you look at this, on the very far left-hand side, you're going to see two sections that are perforated. The very first section on the very left-hand side, right above certified mail, is a little bit of a sticker. Okay, that's also a sticker, and it goes all the way down to the next perforation on the far right. Where you see the numbers above on the far left, that there's a little sticker that you peel off, and you'll put that on this, which is the green receipt. And so you're going to grab some of these too at your local post office. Do they cost you anything? No. As you look at this, this is how it's going to look. You're going to basically, what I always do is I just type it out, make it in small enough letters, get me some clear tape, and I just put it right there where it fits, and I just tape over it as long as I don't mess around with the barcode that's underneath it. Where it says section 2, you're going to place that little sticky number that I talked about on the previous slide right there. Okay. And so it's going to fill across that section, and we'll show you what it looks like. On the service type, you want to scratch with a check mark or just fill it in with a black pen, whatever you want to do, blue, it doesn't matter what color, okay, where it says adult signature, because we want to know who is representing that, all right? We want to make sure it's an adult, not some kid, just picking up somebody's stuff. We want to make sure it's picked up by people with either authority or who's also known as an agent. So when you look at the up top right-hand corner, whoever signs that has to normally mark off the agent because again, they're an agent. Now, if you get it back without that, it's not going to, ruin your day. Just so you guys know, it's not going to, make that big of a deal, but it is a violation of the actual post office manual. Okay. And we'll talk about that later as we progress. So you're going to go ahead and fill this one out. Now, this is how you got to do next. You got to be able to get a yellow manila envelope that's an 8 by 11 1/2, so that way you can stick your paperwork in. And so when we look at it, the green slip on the back side there, where you're going to have your name, because when you flip that over, you'll put your name there on the back side because they're going to mail that back to you. And there's those two little sticky things, one on each side of that green slip there that we're looking at on the far left that says sample. And you peel those off and you stick it on that yellow manila envelope. And then you're going to put your name up on the left-hand corner along with your address. And again, as you're looking, Brunson, comma, South Carolina, comma, USA. Okay. You can put United States of America if you choose to. I just put USA. All right. And then near, and you have the brackets with the zip code. That means you're near that physical federal location. Okay, so you're not granting jurisdiction to the federal location. You're just saying you're near that location. And again, this is how it'll look when it goes out. Okay, just exactly like this. And you, like I said, the other section's a little sticky thing. And so you're going to move that as close as you can to your name on the far left. And the reason why is because on the far right of the certified mail, that's where they're going to put the mailing sticky stamp that has the actual post office account that sends it. Okay. So in other words, the postal stamp. Now, the enclosed in all these mailing is a self-addressed envelope. Okay. And this is how it'll look. So you're basically going to take one of these, you're going to fill it out identical to just what you see here. Okay, minus the self-addressed example part. Okay, we don't want you to write that. That's just an example that I put there so you people know. And you're going to put 5 forever stamps. Okay, then you're just going to basically put in your birth certificates inside this envelope. Okay, not this particular one. You're going to fold this one here in half and stick it in this envelope. And so the self-addressed envelope will be folded in half, placed in this envelope along with your birth certificate. Okay. Then you just go down to the post office and have them weigh it, and they'll send it off and you'll get it sent off, and you'll keep that green receipt, which is this one. They'll give you the far right-hand side of it where it says certified mail receipt. You'll receive that back from the post office. You want to keep that, and you want to keep that in a secure location. You don't want to lose it, okay? Because that has your tracking number. All right. And so we're going to come back down again. And so again, you're going to fold this one in half, stick it in the other envelope along with your birth certificate, and mail it out. Once the state receives it, they'll do the authentication, and then they'll stick your paperwork back into this envelope that you're seeing here in front of you. Once you receive that, then you move on to step 2. Okay, so again, once you receive this paperwork back from the state, you do not want to separate any of the papers that are joined together, because they'll either rivet it or staple your birth certificate to the state authentication paperwork. If you pull it apart, it voids your process. So everything that you've done is just basically ruined. Okay? So remember, do not separate the paperwork. Once you get everything back from there, you're going to go ahead and go on to the Secretary of State of the United States authentication page. Okay. And this is the same paperwork again. You're going to look at this. This is the paperwork that's on there for the form. And if you wanted just to type in the form number, you can do that. On the very bottom hand, left-hand corner, you're going to see DS-4194. Now, if you just type that into Google, it'll come up to this actual paperwork and you can just download it right there too. Save you a couple steps, just depending on what you want to do. Now, when we look at the top part, you're going to put your last name, your middle name, your first name and your middle name, just the way it shows you there, your customer name. Okay. Now, if you don't have a middle name, you don't have one. That's okay. Don't let it ruin your day. You're going to go ahead and put out the prefix. If you're a junior or senior or what have you, you're going to put an email address. You're going to fill out your cell number. Okay. You're going to put an X where it says individual. Okay, because you're not doing it for a company and you're not doing it for a federal agency. Okay. Mailing address. This is your personal mailing address. Again, remember what I said. You do not abbreviate your regular aspect. Okay. So you're going to fill out your address according to what it is. You're going to put your city, whatever your city is. The state is South Carolina. The country you're going to type in, United States of America. Again, your zip code will have those brackets like we showed you earlier on the yellow manila. And you'll just put that there, okay? Then you go to section 2, delivery method. You're going to put an X on self-addressed stamped envelope, okay? Now, some people do UPS, some people do DHL, some people use other services. I just go ahead and do the most simplest way and just get it back returned. I've never had anybody lose one. I've never had any issues of anybody come back saying, "Hey, I sent it in and I never got anything." It's been, X amount, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Well, when I went on today and I looked again, things have changed. Okay, so now it's taken 5 weeks and a little bit longer, according to the paperwork that they have there at the actual United States Department of State website. Okay, like I mentioned to everybody ahead, you can normally get through this process within 90 days to have your trust and everything set up. Okay, so again, 5 weeks is like I mentioned before, this is the longest time that all the paperwork takes to get situated in this. Now, when we come down here to the section 3, courier representative contact information on the far left, it says, are you submitting or retrieving this request on behalf of another individual? You're going to put an X where it says no. You don't have to fill out any of the other rest of that part because, again, that's for the representatives. Okay. Now we get to section 4 where it says country of use outside. You're going to use United Arab Emirates. And you'll also use that as well, okay, with the state. Why do we do this? Okay. We do it because they are not part of the United Nations. Any country that's not part of the United Nations, they recognize your passport, but to be in that country, let's say if you lost your passport and you had a duplicate copy of your birth certificate that's been authenticated, you can use that to travel in that country, just so you know. Now, document type. It has like a little section there that you click on, you see that little arrow, and it's going to give you all this information of different types of documents. You want to put the birth certificate. Very simple, okay? Again, number of documents. If you're sending in 2 documents, in other words, 2 birth certificates that have been authenticated by the state, even though they're stapled together and there's, let's say, 4 pages, it's still only 2 documents. Okay, so don't let that confuse you. Again, once it's stapled together, it's considered one document, not how many pages. Okay, so don't get that confused. $20 per each document. So that would equal $40. So then once you figure that out, you would come back down to section 5 and you would correct that area where it says $20 per document estimated cost. And so you're going to go where it says document total, you're going to put $40. Okay. And then where it says estimated cost, you're going to put $40. Very simple. Okay. So again, your name, your individual, your address, everything spelled out just like this form, self-addressed stamped envelope, United Arab Emirates, your birth certificate, number of documents, the cost, etc. Okay? And that's how simple this form is. This is how you'll be sending it in to the Department of State authentications. Okay, remember that little number that I was talking to you about that comes off the certified mail? That's what it looks like on your actual envelope. Okay, when you place it there. And that's how you're going to put everything together on this envelope. When you don't do it this way, and you put the green sample, the big one there on the far left, on the back side of your envelope, sometimes it gets missed and you do not receive that paperwork. So when you do it this way, and the carrier at the post office hands that to the individual to pick up because they have to sign for it, they don't miss not signing for it. Okay. Very important. That's how it looks. Now, when you look at the very top where that little perforated line is where it says certified mail, that there top part has a sticky part. And so you fold that over the yellow manila envelope. Okay. And so it's got a little sticky section on the back and then certified mail on the front. Don't cut that off. It's not supposed to be cut off. Just fold it over. It's sticky. All right. So now that you've got that, you're going to go ahead and do the same thing like you did before. You're going to take a self-addressed envelope. Okay. And again, don't put self-addressed envelope example. Okay. You're going to put the Department of State on the left-hand side. You're going to put the 5 forever stamps, your name, blah, 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 just like that. Fold it in half and stick it back into the original envelope. Okay. So that's what we're going to be doing in that aspect. Now, when we come back and we look at it from the standpoint of everything, all right, that's the simplicity of doing it. All right. It's not brain science, people. It's really not. It can be confusing if you allow it to confuse you. But remember, okay, we're not here to confuse anybody. We're here to make it as simple and easy as possible. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put this PDF, just like what I just showed you, in the chats. So everybody open up your chat room. Okay. All right. So now, if everybody sees it, once you've went ahead and clicked on that and downloaded, message me so I know that you've received it. I'll go ahead and take a few minutes off. Go ahead and do that now, please. Thank you, Tabitha. Thank you, Bonnie. I will also, after tonight's class, if you're unable to go ahead, thank you, Paula. Thank you, Mel. Everybody's got it. Good, good. I'm glad everybody's getting it. I'm also going to put that in our regular chat messaging just to make sure everybody has it as well within our Signal messaging group, okay? That way you have it. Okay. Bobby, I know you might not be able to do this, but I believe it's a small enough PDF that if Bonnie or somebody wanted to print that out, they could go ahead and make copies of that and hand that to anybody who's in this circle of classes that we're working with. So that way everybody will have a template, okay? And again, like I said, I'll put it in there. I won't put it on the Facebook one. I'll just put it on the actual Signal account that we have, okay? So everybody has that now. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and get out of this and we'll open it up for discussion on anything that you might have questions of in regards to what I just shared, okay? First of all, if everybody understands what we went through without any problems, just go ahead and raise your hand. You know what I'm saying? There's an area there on reactions that you can put and just raise your hand, okay? You know, that way we know. Okay, Paula's done her hand. Good job, Paula. Okay. Melton as well. Give me the okay signal. Thank you, Melton. All right. Okay. All right. Sounds good. I appreciate you people going ahead and making sure that we have everything, got everything understanding. Like I said, it's not a difficult thing, but it's the first step in the process. It really, is an important step to get done as soon as you can, because until you do it, you're just basically just, kind of just waiting out there for time. Life will always get in your way, just so you know. We're on a multi-dimensional plan of our life, so to speak, here in the physical plane. Shadow energies will always try to force you into an opposite direction of bringing out your true unalienable rights that God's given you. Okay. So you want to make sure that you have the ability to maintain all those areas of truth within your path and within the system that you're moving towards. Okay. So again, you'll have all this information given to you. So it's easy, able to identify and things of this nature. Now, I've been doing a bunch of more research, like I'm always doing, dealing with the trust and other examples and things of this nature to work on as everybody gets through this process. And so, as you're going through this process from here on out, we're going to go mostly into different aspects of trust and how it operates and how you're protected. Let it be within the court systems, let it be with any aspect of government, intrusion on your personal and real property. And so the rest of our courses are going to be dealing with the trust. Okay. And hopefully, by the time everybody gets their paperwork back, we'll be through most of these courses and most of this education that we want to share with each and every one of you so you can initiate your trust. Once your trust is initiated, it's a whole new ball game. The thing you have to remember is you're moving out of the public energy of a citizen, lowercase c, to the private aspect of an American national. Okay. Some people call it an American state national. Okay. It's all good. Either one is not going to, not going to break your back on definition. Okay. Because they're both correct. Okay. First of all, we're an American national living within a state that has a significant name per each state. For instance, Wyoming would be a Wyomingite, okay? Florida, a Floridian. Now, all this is in the government manual that explains what each individual as a national would be called while living in that state. So again, don't be confused. Don't let it confuse you. You know, what's the difference between American national and a state national and blah, 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 blah. We're all moving in the same direction. Just some people utilize different terminology. Okay. Just like what we talked about before. Okay. So when we're looking at terminology and we're looking at, dictionaries, okay, I'm going to go ahead and put another dictionary into our share program. Okay. So into our chat. And so this here is the Webster's first dictionary, okay, of 1828. Okay. Webster, again, like I mentioned before, was the first definition of words put into a publication. Okay. Right now it's downloading because it's 125.54 megabytes of data. Okay. So as this thing progresses and it gets on, I'll let you know as soon as it gets on, but I've placed it into the chat. Once it's there, I'll let you guys know, and each of you pull it down and keep it. Keep it for your files. This is the original, okay? Original copy of the exact stuff that I have behind me in my dictionary area in this book right here. If you look to my, not this side, okay? You'll see this green book here on the third shelf down. That's the Webster's Dictionary book that I have, okay? You're just getting it in a PDF format, which is going to be very important. Now, why have it? Well, terminology, like we've talked about before in some of our earlier classes, is very important. I also have the PDF files for the Black Law dictionaries, okay? And I will be placing those out as we move forward in these next classes of trust and things of this nature. So you'll be able to receive them in a PDF format. I'm saving you guys hundreds and hundreds of dollars, just so you know. Okay. That's just a fact. Okay. To buy the books is very expensive. I mean, to have an original fourth edition Black Law Dictionary book, you're going to be spending more than a couple $100 very easily. And I've seen them go as high as $600. Okay. So again, when you look behind me, there's a lot of money in books. Okay. I'm just telling you. If I can get them in a PDF file, which I have a lot, okay, because over the years, that's how I've done things. And there's even been books that I've actually taken photographs and created a PDF file just so people could have it. Okay. And again, that's very important. When we were back in Idaho, back in the day, we had a ordinance book that our association put together. And it was a very important book because, again, it dealt with ordinances within the the structure of county ordinances, city ordinances. And we broke it down to the case laws and things of this nature because back then we needed to be able to fight, okay? And I say fight because it was a fight, to be able to have that kind of stuff, okay? So it's important. I mean, those of you who have some of these books already, kudos, okay? Because again, they're not, very easy to get a hold of if you don't have the funds to procure them, okay? But if you can, that's the best way to do it, okay? Now, when we look at it from the standpoint of the SESTA-QV Act, things of this nature, we have different paperwork. We have paperwork dealing with equitable. We have paperwork for demand letters. We're going to be going through all these different things dealing with the trust. At the same line, we're going to be looking at timelines, things of this nature, okay? And so when we look at it from a standpoint of timelines, it's going to be a very interesting to see how each of you move into this area. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set in here is signatures. Okay, because everybody always asks, how do you do certain things? Okay, so if you look at that I just put in the chat, go ahead and click on it and save it. It's going to have your thumbprint, your ink, and your signature versus autograph. Okay. And then on the right-hand side where it says signature, you're going to see all rights reserved with a little dash. Okay. That's important. Your signature is going to have your first name with a dash. Okay. Your middle name followed by the dot dot. Okay. And then your last name. And I'll show you that here as we progress further with some of this information. Okay. And now I'm just going through all my paperwork here. Okay. Most of you might not have this or are unaware of this, but this is the historical documents according to timelines. Okay. So again, go back onto the chat. You're going to receive this, pull it off, save it. Because again, this is important information to understand our country, where we're moving to. Why are we doing what we're doing? Is it just, hey, we want to be a national? What's the reason? Do we have to do this? We're doing it to claim the private ability to stay within the private without presuming that you are a corporation within the United States corporation. Okay. So again, I'm going to go ahead and it might take a little bit there, Paula, on your signature stuff. Some people have already got it, it looks like. And so Bonnie looks like she got it. Again, it just takes time for everybody who can see this messages, okay? Now, everything that we're putting on here will be saved within this aspect of this recording, okay? And so I will probably go ahead and edit some of this stuff. And so we just have a little bit of stuff here on it. It'll be a short one to be able to have, but at the same time, it'll be something that you guys can utilize, okay? Uh, Section. We have all different aspects that we're going to be utilizing within congressional records, as well as we're going to be given all this information. So each and every one of you have information to be able to utilize, to be able to read. Hopefully, you'll be able to move in a direction where it doesn't confuse you. Again, we're working everything in the aspect to the most simplicity that we can. All right. And I think that's the most important part. Again, when we're operating in private within that UCC1 filing, we will be having areas that are protecting us within that. Okay. Dishonor. Okay. That the government will, try to be dishonored within your paperwork. This next one here is the UCC filing 3-503, notice of dishonor. Okay. The reason I'm putting these out there today is because once you get your paperwork back from the state, okay, this is an example of what the Secretary of State of Texas authentication looks like, okay? You'll receive something very similar from South Carolina. The main thing is this one. Okay, that's the authentication from the United States. Now, if we look at it, right over here is where we want to see full faith and credit. That there says that you are now entitled to the full faith and credit within that trust, within that birth certificate. Okay. So we'll go ahead and, all right, looks like Paula got everything going there. Good job, Paula. Some of this stuff is, hey, us old timers, who are pretty young at heart. This computer stuff's a little bit harder than most of us, could have to figure out. So I spend a lot of time on it. So, there's a lot of things I've learned, and I learn something new almost every day on the computer, which is kind of neat. So, you got to be open to a little bit of change. Okay, people. We're at 8:14 now, so I'm just going to kind of open it up for discussion. We'll go ahead and if you want to go ahead and say something, go ahead and raise your hand or just unmute, and we'll go ahead and go from there and answer any questions that any of you might have. Okay. Paula, do you have any questions? You can just put it in the chat if you like. If you don't want to unmute, just put nope. And if you do have a question, put it in the chat. So that way I can go ahead and read it, and then we'll work on it from that aspect too. Okay. Bonnie, do you have any questions? If you do, feel free to unmute. Bobby, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute. Looks like Bobby's unmuted. Go ahead, Bobby. What's your question?
You say Bobby or Bonnie?
Bonnie.
Um, well, I had to go outside and get my glasses out the car, so I had to write kind of fast when you were telling about the first few things to do. So I may be asking questions about that part again.
Okay. In the
I couldn't
actual
see.
in the actual PDF file that you got, every question that could ever be asked dealing with the paperwork is in that file. Okay. So if you just look at that paperwork in the PDF that you received and just follow the instructions, you won't have any questions. Okay. Because it's really simplified. Okay. I mean, I spent a few hours on trying to break this down and give you, any question that could be asked. And I always try to do that. Hopefully, I succeed most of the time, but if there's some questions that are still out there, then, I'll be more than happy to answer them. But again, just open up the PDF file, go to page one, just take your time, look at it. It's self-explanatory. Boom, 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 boom. How to fill it
That's what
out.
you said tonight.
Yeah, yeah, that's what we did tonight. Yep.
That's the first one.
Yep, that's the very first PDF file that we sent
Okay.
tonight. Okay. And I sent that at 7:57. So if you go on your chat and you look up time, it's at 7:57 where that PDF file is located. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right. Paula doesn't have any questions. Bobby, do you have any questions? Okay. Milton, do you have any questions? Hopefully that answers your questions that you had when you texted me earlier yesterday. Feel free to unmute if you need to, Milton. If not, you're good.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now, Milton. We can hear you now.
I'm sorry. This iPad is taking both my wife and I to run it. Find the unmute button. Hey, so I listed three questions that I have for you. Why not abbreviate the address on the envelopes? One, and why did you? And this is just to help me understand because I'm very logical. And then why use the near in the address? And then the form that you cited was Form 4194, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So the first one, okay, on your first question, why we don't abbreviate? Because that's through the commercial status. Okay. Everything that you see, like the state SC, that's commercial. Okay. So hopefully that answers your first question.
Yeah, you're just telling me that I filled my form out wrong.
Lazy man way.
Well, you're not going to get, beat up over it. I just want to start people getting used to doing things, in a manner that I just muted you too, Milton. So not to, have the echo come back. But again, it's done in that manner. So that way, from here forward, once you get everything started now early and you start writing everything out, once you have your trust initiated, you get used to just signing and doing things in that area. It takes 30 days to 90 days to create repetition and memory where you just constantly do things that way. And what we're trying and working towards and doing, okay, is creating memory to be able to write according to living in the private sector versus the public sector. Okay. And so when we put near the zip code, that means we're near the commercial United States number allocated for the state through the Postal Service. Okay. So it takes you away from actually saying, I live in this zip code, but I live near this zip code. Okay. Now, the form, that's the form that the United States of government utilizes for the authentication process. There's no other form for it. So, you can go onto their website, it's going to be the same form. That's just the form number that I shared with everybody. So it would save you, hopefully, an extra couple of steps. So again, you can do it that way or you can do it the other. It doesn't matter to me which way you do it as long as you use the form that's showing that we showed tonight. And it's the same form that's utilized within the United States Secretary of State authentication process. Okay? Did I get all those questions answered there, Milt? You can unmute if you need to. Okay, understand. Thank you, sir. All right. So again, why do we not abbreviate the address? Because again, everything's abbreviated is in the commercial standard. That's how tricky the government is within keeping you in that status, okay? Best thing to do, small letters for state on the form. No, you're just going to just put upper and lower case. Again, the upper and lower case is the true aspect of the municipality that works both in the constitutional aspect as well as the commercial aspect. So when you put that state in upper and lower case, okay, the way I showed on the forms, you're moving into the constitutional jurisdiction due to the fact that you're in the United States of America, which follows that aspect, and you're putting parentheses within the box section of the zip code. Okay, so that's why we don't all utilize all small letters for the state. Okay, again, we're working within their system to get the paperwork we need so we can move out of their system. Okay, We don't want to confuse people or red flag them or any of this stuff and what have you. We want to just be able to make this as simple as possible. Okay. So on that aspect. All right. Tabitha, do you have any questions, Tabitha? Feel free to unmute if you have any questions. There's no bad question, people. Just remember that. There's no bad question. Okay. Well, thank you, Tabitha. All right, people. Well, there's no more questions. It looks like we went through another hour of information and answering questions and being able to get things done right. Again, hopefully everybody was able to download tonight the PDF file. Okay, I'm just going to go over them again. The PDF file, how to fill out the authentication. Okay, the Webster's 1828 dictionary. Okay, the area of thumbprint symbolization, ink and seal color chart, and your signature. Okay, as well as the historical documents, and also 3-503 of the UCC code notice of dishonor. Okay. So hopefully everybody was able to get that done tonight. I'm going to go ahead and call it an evening. I appreciate all of you coming in tonight and asking your questions and so forth. And again, we're just a phone call away. I'm sure, most of you might have our number, but if you don't, I'm putting it in the chat right now again. It's right there for those of you who don't. If you have questions, feel free. If you have somebody that's interested, feel free to, make sure they're of good, good standing. In other words, you feel good about, sharing this information with them, not being forced on them, not throwing up on them or, making them feel, bad because they're not aware of what's taking place, things of this nature. All this stuff that we're teaching you is to stay ahead of the game as this transition of government changes through this decade. Okay. This is the most important decade of each and every one of your lives. Okay. Your children's lives, your family, your relatives, your work, all this, because everything's going to be changed and it's going to be changing sooner than we think. Okay. So again, do your due diligence, take the time, get your birth certificates, get them authenticated so you can move forward to the trust and start accessing that aspect so we can start working towards redeeming some of those areas of bills that you're utilizing and so forth. And then that way, you know, we're able to go ahead and have firsthand experience on what we're doing so that way we can help others learn the same process. It isn't about learning the process and then just keeping it to yourself or putting a high dollar amount to get educated. Okay. It's difficult enough in society today. I mean, of all of us who had the same information like that I have, and some have more information than what I utilize, I kind of just stay in a certain area. Okay. And yes, you have to do your trust first before you put it in your property into the trust. Yes, that's correct. And so again, we have to have everything initiated within order. We have to be able to show verification. We have to remember once we do certain things that are in the private, we can't be sharing our entire trust with other people who aren't in this same situation. Okay, because let's say you share it with somebody who's a public person, just so you know, okay, then you're putting it into the public venue and they can basically void your trust. That's fact. Okay. Government come in and say, oh, well, Tom Jones over here, the singer, you showed him your trust and he's in the public. And so now you've taken your private trust, put it in the public, and now it's known in the public. The thing you have to be able to do if you want to share anything is also, and I'll put one together. I have several different types. NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, okay? And under the non-disclosure agreement, okay, people are unable to share information, and if they do, they're liable. Doesn't matter who it is. When I do my big seminars and big talks and that I did all over the United States, everybody signed a non-disclosure agreement, just so you know, okay? And the reason why is because, again, we were dealing with private information, okay? This stuff that I'm sharing with you is not private information anymore. A lot of this information has been utilized all over the internet. I mean, you can go online and from David Strait to, Ken, of State Nationals Rock to, I mean, all these people are doing all these things, okay? And they share only stuff that can be shared within the public area, and they keep the private stuff private, okay? So again, what about your family? I'd do a non-disclosure agreement with my family, to be honest. I mean, I hate to say it, but I've been stabbed more times in my back by my family than I had anybody else in my life. So again, not to say that I'm the same as everybody else, but hey, you can't pick your family, but you can pick your friends. And sometimes your friends are a lot more responsible than your family. Just being honest, okay? So again, if you want to share something with your family there, Bobby, then what I would suggest is, you just say, hey, I'm going to share this with you, but you can't tell anybody about it. No big deal. Ain't no different than, like a will or something of that nature. It goes into a place where nobody knows until that time happens. Kind of the same thing with your trust. You're just taking care of it. You're protecting your assets. And I don't know if anybody's ever, thought about that, but it's basically, assets. Why do you think it's spelled assets? All right, people? Because you're protecting yourself. All right. I won't go into the other terminology of assets, but I think all of you understand where we're coming from. Okay. You're just covering that backside of you. Okay. So anyhow, anything else that I can think of tonight will probably hit me sometime later after we, zoom off this, and I'll jot it down, and we'll come back and we'll go through everything, this next Thursday again, and we'll be going mostly into trusts. The aspect of where you're at, okay, within the trust process, what you need to do, what you need to look forward to, what you have to have the ability to do, okay? Now, in this county, in Hampton, I was on my wife's Facebook, and I was looking at some of the stuff that was going on here in our county, and they just had like a municipality gathering together in Estelle, and hopefully I'm saying that right. And for the municipalities to start working together to try to figure out where they can get more money, okay? Because here in Hampton, we just got another, we just found this out here this last week, uh, and recently, there's another $8 million missing out of the Hampton County Treasury. We're behind on their equipment, and so they had all their equipment as far as roadwork equipment repoed because they figured somebody didn't pay the bill apparently, and they even fired the guy that wasn't even overseeing the bills, the manager of the road maintenance. And I think that's the second time, from what my sources have told me, that he's been fired and got rehired. And so now I think he's going to go after him and actually file a claim. Okay, so when you're working with government and they have left you the best paper trail there is of failure to do what they're meant to do as employees or representatives of the people, and you're able to get documentation of this trail of evidence, then you can utilize that trail of evidence to file a tort claim A tort claim is a liability claim that you file against the city, the county, or the state. Okay. You have to have all your ducks in a row. So you want to make sure, if it's a court case, hypothetically, that you have the audio of all the hearings. The audio receives transcribed. In other words, you pay a transcriber to take the audio and transcribe it so it's written. And then they certify that as factual evidence. Okay. Once that's done, then you have your major evidence, as an example, in a court case. Then you ask the county clerk through a FOIA request for the insurance company that represents the county or the city or the state. Okay. In most cases, the county has the ability to settle out of court for under $500,000 or less. That's their decision. Okay. Now, let's say you were thrown in jail overnight or maybe 2 nights. There's a case out of Florida called the Tresvert case, and we'll be talking about that next week. We'll bring that in. An individual went to jail because they just did him wrong. Okay, they pulled him over for the wrong reasons. They claimed he had this when in fact he didn't. And he spent time in jail. When he came back out, he sued and he won. And he received over $1,000 per minute while in jail. Just so you guys know, that's case law out of Florida on a federal level. Okay. Will everybody get that $1,000 per minute? Who knows? But I guarantee you're going to get pretty close to it because it's already case law. Okay. So 60 minutes, 60,000 times that by 24 hours, 10 hours, 3 hours, 1 hour. Don't matter. Okay. That there is why it's important to have all your ducks in a row. You get the insurance. And then after you get the insurance, paperwork, and it'll tell you on their insurance paperwork because they have to give it to you. Okay. What their liabilities are for due diligence, misrepresentation, everything. And they got different amounts for every violation that they do because they're always violating people. So they've established this in the insurance policy. Once that insurance policy and you have a copy of it, okay, then you do the bonds. You find out who holds their bonds. So let's say it's Acme Bonds that holds the bonds for each employee or each elected official. Then you go to them and you put them on notice as well that there's a violation. Okay. So automatically the bond people are on notice. Okay. Once you have that, and you give them this information that you got proof of. Okay. And I'll help anybody with that paperwork, just so you know. Okay. What you do with it is what you do with it. But if you look at it from the standpoint of fixing government from slapping people around unlawfully as well as illegally, just because, they feel that they can push you around, this is the only way that you can straighten them out. Okay. It does cost money to file the suit. It does cost money. Okay. Especially on a federal level. But once you put it in on a federal level and you do your federal paperwork correctly, okay, normally they settle out of court. They don't want to go to court because if they go to a jury's going to award you normally more than what you're asking for. Just telling you the facts. Okay. So again, you want to make sure that you have the insurance policy. You want to know who the bonding agents are. You want to know, the employee handbook manual. You want to ask for that. So if it's a sheriff or a police officer, each of them have employee handbooks or some form of area of a employment manual. You want to ask for that. That's all public information. They can't deny you. Okay. So all we're doing is we're gathering each and every step to utilize when we file a tort claim. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Because again, once you get everything initiated, it doesn't mean you're not going to be harassed. Okay, but if it does happen, at least you know how to go about fixing through the laws of equity and how to go after the individuals who have violated your God-given rights as a living man or woman, son or daughter. Okay. So, food for thought, everybody. Okay. I mean, just food for thought. Tresvert. Okay. And again, $1,000 plus a minute. It's a big check. Okay. So, anyhow, all right, people, have a wonderful evening. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. Get a nice night's sleep. Hopefully, you can sleep after this information. And if you can't, give me a call. No, I'm just kidding because I'll be sleeping. Anyway, thanks again. Peace and love. Have a great night.